Picture it. History books love big moments. A war begins. A new invention shows up overnight. A government falls. People point to dates and say, "This is when everything changed." But you already know the trick. Most of life's biggest shifts don't arrive with sirens.
They come quietly. So quietly that at first nothing feels wrong. Then, one season later, something familiar is missing. And after a few years, you look back and realize nobody can say exactly when the change happened.
Just 1 year, and then a few years later. That's what the story of Old Italy feels like. Not a single dramatic collapse, but a slow fade of everyday life. Step by step, relationship by relationship, sound by sound. In one village, children are still playing football in the piazza. Dust lifts from the old stone. Someone shouts from a balcony. A bicycle leans against a wall like it always has. Then the years pass. A few years later, the square is empty. Not empty in a dramatic way, empty like a place that quietly forgot its purpose. The benches are still there, the buildings are still there, but the laughter isn't. And when you ask people when it changed, they shrug. Nobody remembers the exact day. It didn't end with a headline. It simply ended. That pattern repeats again and again, like a tune you only notice once it stops. One summer, every family is making tomato sauce together. You can almost smell it. Tomatoes simmering, garlic softening, basil or herbs bruised by hands that know what they're doing. Kids gather close, not because anyone invited them like a special event, but because that's what happens when a ritual belongs to everyone. Then, one year, fewer people show up. The next year, it's a smaller group. Eventually, there's no big break that anybody announces. No one stands in the middle of the village and declares, "The tradition is over." It just fades. The people who carried it shift into different routines. The pot no longer boils on schedule. One day, you realize nobody is teaching the next generation how to taste right sauce. And the recipe doesn't just lose ingredients, it loses the shared time that used to hold it together. For generations, Italians believed that parts of everyday life would always exist, not because they were stubborn or naive, because the life they knew felt permanent. It felt rooted, like the stones of the street and the smell of bread in the morning. You can hear that belief in questions people used to ask. How could an Italian village exist without the bakery everyone knew? How could Sunday happen without the whole family gathering around one table? How could children ever stop playing outside until sunset? Those things sounded impossible. They weren't endangered in anyone's mind. They were simply there. And then, little by little, the impossible began to look normal. Maybe the first thing that felt unbreakable was the neighborhood itself. You know this kind of place, the one where you don't just live on a street, you belong to it. In those villages, people knew every family, every child, every elderly neighbor. Walking down the street meant hello after hello. Someone stopped you for a conversation that lasted longer than you planned. Someone asked about your parents. Someone remembered your grandparents like they were part of the weather, always present, always relevant. The neighborhood wasn't just geography, it was identity. And when cities grew larger, when families moved for work, and when schedules became faster, strangers slowly replaced neighbors. Eventually, many people lived beside someone whose name they'd never learned. That's a quiet kind of loneliness, not the dramatic kind you can point to, just a gradual loss of recognition. Another thing people believed would last was the local bakery. Before sunrise, ovens filled with fresh bread. Warm smell pushed through the village like a signal. Children volunteered to buy bread, not only because they wanted it, but because they hoped to receive a warm piece before arriving home. The baker knew what everyone liked, which loaves someone always grabbed, which roll someone preferred, which customer needed something softer. Some families had been buying bread from the same place for generations. That means the bakery wasn't just selling food, it was keeping a daily promise. Today, many small bakeries are gone. Supermarkets offer convenience, bright aisles, and predictable options, but a supermarket can't replace the feeling of walking in somewhere where they already know your name. Convenience can feed you, but it doesn't always comfort you. And then there was Sunday lunch. For millions of Italians, Sunday wasn't just a meal, it was family time with a slow, steady rhythm. You could picture it even before you sat down. Grandparents, uncles and aunts, cousins you didn't see all week, fresh pasta laid out like it mattered. Tomato sauce slowly cooking until it tasted like patience. Nobody looked at the clock. Nobody rushed to finish. The afternoon belonged to family. Today, many people still celebrate together, but not with the same size group, not with the same frequency. Modern work schedules, school schedules, and travel plans quietly change the tempo. Sunday still exists, but sometimes it doesn't feel like the same thing. It's one of those shifts you don't notice until the old rhythm isn't there anymore. Another tradition people didn't expect to change was the evening passeggiata. You know the vibe. Entire towns walking together, not for a workout plan, not to burn calories, but because being together mattered. You greet neighbors, you meet friends, kids run ahead and then circle back. You share stories without needing a reason. No one expected an evening walk to become something unusual. Yet in many places, it did. The route might still exist, but the soundscape changed. Conversations become shorter. People stay inside longer. The street that once felt alive becomes a place you pass rather than a place you visit. Then came the disappearance of shops that were more than stores. The butcher, the tailor, the shoemaker, the fruit seller. Each one knew their customers personally. Each one understood the community because they were part of it. They weren't just selling goods, they were participating in daily life. So when these places closed, you didn't just lose products, you lost relationships. And relationships are hard to replace. You can't buy that kind of knowledge in bulk. You can't recreate the years of, I know what you like, and I remember what happened last time. Supermarkets can stock items. They can't stock history in the same way. Another surprise was watching children slowly disappear from the streets. There was a time when every village echoed with children's voices. Footballs bounced against old stone walls. Bicycles leaned outside houses like they belonged there, because they did. Hide and seek lasted until sunset. Parents rarely worried the way they do now. Neighbors watched from windows without turning it into surveillance. Grandparents sat outside, keeping an eye on everyone, while still letting childhood stay casual and free. No one expected those sounds to fade. But today, many village streets are beautiful and quiet. The quiet isn't peaceful in the same way. It's just missing. The children are somewhere else. People also believed hospitality would always feel automatic, especially the habit of leaving the front door open. Warm afternoons meant fresh air inside. Neighbors could call from the street. A cousin might stop by unexpectedly. Someone might return a borrowed bowl. Coffee could appear without planning. Hospitality wasn't scheduled. It was simply part of being in the neighborhood. Today, locked doors, intercoms, and busy schedules replace that spontaneity. This isn't about judging anyone's choices. It's about noticing what those choices cost. When everyone is protecting their private space, less of the day spills out into shared life. Another tradition felt impossible to lose, knowing where food came from. Children understood the journey of every meal long before anyone used the word organic. The tomatoes came from a nearby garden. The bread came from the village baker. The cheese came from a local farm. Olive oil came from trees that had belonged to the same family for generations. Even the idea of origin wasn't complicated. It was just true. As supermarkets expanded, those connections slowly weakened. Food could come from far away without anyone asking questions. People still eat well in Italy, and they still value taste. But the relationship changed. It's one thing to eat food you recognize from someone's hands and land. It's another to eat food chosen from a shelf. You could also see the old rhythms in everyday details, like laundry hanging between stone buildings. Sheets danced in the summer breeze. Neighbors spoke from opposite windows while clothes dried. Kids played beneath the spectacle of daily chores, paying little attention because it was part of the background. Visitors took photographs, thinking it was charming. Locals often called it simply life. Many historic villages still preserve that image, but it's far less common than it used to be. Modern life made public-facing home life less necessary. People became more private, more insulated. The street lost another kind of visibility. Village festivals used to unite everyone. Preparations lasted weeks. Families cooked together. Volunteers decorated the streets. Musicians rehearsed. Children counted down the days like it was a countdown to something that could never skip them. The entire community participated, not just a few spectators, everyone. Some festivals remain vibrant today, but others survive only because a handful of older residents refuse to let them disappear. That's another theme you keep seeing. Tradition doesn't always die because people stop caring. Sometimes it continues because a small number of people refuse to stop carrying it. Another shift was subtle and practical, repairing instead of replacing. Every village had someone who could fix almost anything. A torn jacket, a broken bicycle, a wooden chair, a radio that refused to work. Throwing useful things away felt wasteful. People valued skill. They admired those who could bring old objects back to life. Today, replacing something is often easier than repairing it. Convenience won. But along with that convenience came the slow disappearance of craftsmanship, the pride of knowing how to mend, the social habit of asking a local expert for help. Even if you can fix something yourself, you lose something when you stop relying on the people who used to be part of your daily problem solving. Family recipes were another thing people thought would last forever. Grandmothers cooked beside grandchildren, not by giving written instructions like a textbook, but by teaching through observation. A little more flour. Wait until it smells right. Now you know. Those recipes survived because families cooked together. The cooking wasn't only about food, it was about learning a language of taste and timing. As lifestyles changed, many unwritten recipes disappeared with the people who carried them. Sometimes the ingredients still exist, but the how and when travel with the older generation, and when they're gone, the knowledge doesn't always transfer. Evenings used to sound different. Not television, not phones, conversation. After dinner, entire streets echoed with voices. Neighbors talked about the weather, remembered old stories, and laughed. Someone played an accordion, someone sang quietly while watering flowers. The village itself seemed alive. Today, many evenings are quieter. People remain inside. Windows stay closed. Screens replace conversations that once filled the streets. Quiet isn't always bad. But when quiet replaces community, it can feel like the world got smaller without anyone announcing it. One of the biggest changes, though it was often invisible, was caring for elderly relatives at home. In older times, grandparents often stayed close to their children and grandchildren. Sometimes 3 generations lived under one roof. Wisdom flowed naturally from old to young. Family wasn't only emotional, it was also daily proximity. Modern life makes that harder. Families move for work, homes become smaller, distances grow larger. The love may remain, but the closeness changes. Even simple greetings change. Older Italians remember walking through town and greeting nearly everyone they met, not because every person was their best friend, but because acknowledging someone was a form of respect. Now many people pass each other silently. It isn't unkindness, it's a different rhythm of life, one that doesn't require the same amount of public attention. Then there's the village cafe. Years ago, people visited to talk. The coffee mattered, sure, but conversation mattered more. News spread there, friendships grew there, arguments ended there. Today, cafes still exist. Many are still busy. But too often, tables are occupied by people looking at screens instead of each other. The building stayed the same, the atmosphere changed. And that shift matters because it affects what people do with their time. Do you gather to share, or do you consume alone? Perhaps one of the saddest losses involved memory itself. Older villagers remembered every family, every wedding, every harvest, every difficult winter. They carried the history of the community inside their minds, and when they passed away, entire libraries disappeared with them because not every story got written down. Not every detail got saved in a form that could easily travel forward. Modern Italy gained wonderful things: better medicine, greater opportunity, faster travel, technology people couldn't imagine before. Life became easier in countless ways, but many older Italians believe something precious slipped away during that progress. Not buildings, not monuments, not famous landmarks. Something harder to replace. A sense of belonging. The feeling that every face in the village was familiar. The sense that every child was protected by the whole community. The belief that every celebration belonged to everyone, that every goodbye mattered. That kind of belonging doesn't show up on a brochure or a statistic. It shows up in daily behavior. And here's the remarkable part. Nobody expected these changes. No one woke up one morning believing they were living through the final years of Old Italy. The bakery closed one day, a family moved away another year.